Uh, hello. Here we are again, coming to you from Broadcast Team Alpha on 44 different platforms around the world. And we're going to have some fun again. And we already had some fun because we had some technical problems. We couldn't figure out how to talk to each other. And that's kind of important. So, so we'll just go from here. And from now, it is going to be all down. Oh, hang on just a second. This is. Uh, yeah, we have more technical problem. How about that? Okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to get rid of that one. And just bear with me. There we go. All right. Yeah, my name is Agi, and maybe today that's not a credit, but maybe some of this is above my pay grade. So, but we're working on it. Yeah, we are on 44 different platforms, but we also are out there on the Cosmic Awakening Network. They have close to 50 different shows over there, and you should go visit and see what they have, because that's where they hide the good stuff, because that platform cannot be messed with. There is no censorship, or they're not worried about anything like that. So if you are on YouTube right now, that's the place to be, because that's the only place we can have a look at the chat room, and you can ask questions. You can talk to other people in there and have a good time. And yes, this is going to be good, because we're going to be taking you out into space again, because we have Mary Joyce returning to Broadcast Team Alpha. And she's got some new information, so we're going to be looking forward to hearing that. She is a real researcher. She's a digger that has gotten behind the curtain and found many of the answers to the things that we are looking for right these days. And for those of you that like to have a look at her website while you're listening, it is Sky Ships Over Cashiers.com. Sky Ships Over Cashiers.com. And she writes articles, and she have a lot of pictures on the website of amazing things that you can go have a look at. And I think last time I talked to her, I think she had 5 books out there, or maybe that's even more now. So
nope, it's still 5.
Still 5. Okay, all right. But I know, knowing a little bit about you, you got the 6th one just kind of humming back here in the background. It'll be at 6. And for those of you that also want to see what she has written about, check on the last one, Spy in the Sky. There's some really good things in there that you probably should have a look at. And now we're on and we're live. So welcome to the show, Mary.
It's good to see you again. It's always frustrating, though, to have to go through technical stuff. You begin to think, oh, my goodness, we're never going to get connected here. But we did. Finally, it worked.
Yeah. Thanks to the magician behind the curtain here, Mac, the producer. He's good at what he does. But we figured it out. Oh, gosh, I tell you, you write about so many things. I don't even know what to ask first, but we talked a little bit before the show, and there is some information actually that I think both of us have seen, and that is coming out of a cargo bay of the space shuttle.
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit more about that. First of all, I usually write about stuff from the mountains of North Carolina, which is where I live. But I used to live on Cocoa Beach, and I lived so close to the Space Center that when they would have launches, I could feel the vibrations in the floor before you would ever see anything launched into the sky. And when I was there, I got to meet people who worked at NASA, including some of the aerospace engineers and one astronaut. And the astronaut when I met him in person, it wasn't anything like I thought it was going to be. I met him with only about 12 people at a little bungalow house in Orlando. And it was an air-conditioned home, but he was sweating profusely. He was nervous beyond belief. It's the last image you would expect of an astronaut. And we were there from middle of the afternoon to supper time. And he had just been fired by NASA, and he had been there for well over 30 years. And the reason he got fired is what he told us about, and it was the first time he ever talked about it. And I honestly think that his friend had a few of us over there who would be receptive to listening to him, because he probably needed maybe just the therapy of being able to talk about what had just happened to him. And he was trained as an astronaut, but his main job was to be the spacecraft operator at Mission Control. And the reason he had that job was because with his astronaut training, if they had trouble in space, he would be more likely to be able to help the astronauts because he knew exactly what they would be going through. Well, there was a monitor that he was right there where he was working, and suddenly there was a view of the open bay of the shuttle, and there was a tall astronaut a tall ET in there, about 8 to 9 feet tall, and there were two tethered astronauts, obviously talking or communicating with them. They were tethered into the open bay so they wouldn't fly away. And adjacent to the shuttle was the spacecraft that the ET had arrived on. This is where he made his mistake. He told some other people at NASA about this. He wasn't supposed to talk about it. That got him fired. Not only did he get fired, he lost his retirement benefits, he lost his insurance, he got blackballed. And so he was at the worst position he'd ever been in his life. So that was the reason he was so emotional. Hopefully, having kind people listen to him helped him. I sincerely hope that it did. But that was pretty special to be able to meet him and to get his inside stories. Not only did he see the ET out in the open bay, but he talked to someone else who was also an aerospace engineer at Mission Control. And I'm going to quote him on this. He said, "About 2 months following my incident, I was informed of another report by another aerospace engineer. This person was also involved in the launching of space shuttles. This is the important part. This shuttle engineer observed a very similar entity, 8 to 9 feet tall, inside the space shuttle crew compartment as it orbited Earth. He was slouched over to protect his head from hitting the shuttle. And again, it was communicating with two smaller NASA astronauts. And you've seen pictures of the space that they have inside these space vehicles. And I imagine it'd be very, very hard for an 8 or 9 foot creature to even get inside. So that was some of the first stories that I learned from Clark McClellan. But he had a very, very serious friendship with Wernher von Braun. Now, Wernher von Braun became over with the paperclip project, after World War II. He ended up being the head of what became NASA. And again, most people know his name, Dr. Wernher von Braun. And these two were friends for 7 years, from 1959 to 1966. And he told him all sorts of stuff. What would happen is that Wernher von Braun would come from Huntsville, Alabama, for meetings or for conferences. And most of these were held at hotels on the beach in Cocoa Beach. And so these two would go off and sit under one of those umbrella tables or go out to the beach where they could be away from everybody else. And they would have very personal conversations. Now, it's significant that their friendship ended in 1966. When Wernher von Braun began to tell him about Mars, we didn't even have a satellite that circled Mars. The first one was the Mariner 9, which was in 1971. So everything that he was telling Clark happened before we had any chance of knowing it any other way. So I found that really, really fascinating. So
Yeah.
you want me to take a breath or you want me to go right into
No,
Mars?
no, I got to comment on that. Chances are that in that year we have already been to Mars. What
Had
about
had
that?
all the what? Say that
We
again,
could
please.
we could already have been to Mars at that time.
We might have, but the public certainly didn't know it, and there was no satellite that was known at that time that was circling circling Mars at all. But
But there there
Clark,
there is
yes,
there is there is this video on YouTube still that is supposed to be a joint US and Russian trip to Mars, and you can see the video through the window of the spacecraft and see the surface of Mars. And that is it's an old movie footage that is turned into a video, and it looks. This was way before any alterations of the videos and so on. So there is something there that you can hear the conversation, you can see the surface of Mars, and the rumor about that video is that that was from the joint journey from Earth to Mars by the Russians and the US together. I know that's
interesting.
controversial. You've probably seen that video.
I've not. I have not. If you remember it after the show, send me a link. I think I better see it. I do
Yeah.
know that Chaim Ashid, who was in charge of the Israeli Space Defense Department
Yeah.
for almost 30 years. I know you're familiar with him, but in December of 2020, he made a public statement for the Jerusalem Post, talking about how, well, I'll just quote two lines from it. There's an agreement between the U.S. government and the aliens. Second sentence I want to quote. There's an underground base in the depths of Mars where their representatives are, and also our American astronauts. So who knows how far back that goes? We really
Yeah.
do not know. But the public at that point had no knowledge of anything about the visuals on Mars.
Yeah. And I think that we have been there. I have a good reason to think that. I had a good friend here in Tucson that probably was one of the most knowledgeable people on the Germans flying saucers, and he said, and I was over to his house, and he showed me some documents written in German where it said that there was a thing called the Haunebu 4 that was sent on a trip to Mars by the Nazis in 1940, late 45, 44 or 5, and they lost contact with it. They don't know what happened to it. Wendell Stevens, he had those German papers, and I
Wow.
had to translate a
He
few of
was
them.
he's a he was a well-respected researcher.
Yeah, yeah, he got stuff that nobody got their hands on about the German round aircraft.
Right. So anyhow,
So
Clark quoted von Braun, and again, this is before 19 or by 1966, and I'll just quote a little bit of it. He said von Braun thought we would eventually find evidence that life had evolved on the red planet hundreds of thousands of years ago. He even alluded to the possibility of our discovering ancient ruins of buildings or technology on the planet's surface during future orbital, photographic, or manned Mars missions. He said he would not be surprised that some type of life was still surviving on or below the Martian surface. And let's see if this other thing is worth sharing. Quote, this is Clark again speaking. Um, Von Braun then floored me with the next theory he had, that Mars may have had an advanced civilization technologically capable of spaceflight, that when it began to lose its atmosphere or face destruction from the planet near Jupiter exploding, their having the capability of spaceflight allowed them to sustain their culture by actually coming to Earth. He said that at least some of those of our present human culture may be Martians.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Absolutely. But we have also in the Martian atmosphere, they have found xenon gas, which can only be created from a nuclear discharge. So there is some theories or some indication that there may have been a nuclear holocaust on Mars that dried the planet out.
So we know there was a disaster. We know there was a disaster. Yeah. And one of the things I found that may be connected was when I started doing the research of using Google Earth to explore all sorts of things. But when I explored the ocean along the West Coast, I found very huge structures, everything from up to Alaska down to Baja. The structures that are just in the shallow part of the ocean are huge by human standards. Everything that I have heard was the Martians were a larger species. So maybe they built these things and maybe that's why they were so big. And the one that impressed me the most was in the Bay of Baja. There is something from the aerial view that looks just like airport runways. And in my book, Spy in the Sky, I've got a picture of a contemporary airport runway system next to it, and they look interchangeable. The biggest difference is the size. Our airports don't go much beyond 3 miles in length at the max. This one was 89 miles in length. That's huge, absolutely huge. And everything along that side had those huge dimensions to them. So maybe indeed the Martians did land here. Also, they have, indications of like a pyramid or two on Mars. We have pyramids on multiple continents. And also, I've found them at the bottom of the Atlantic, not too far from Paradise Island in the Bahamas. And what's interesting is when I found that, I found two pyramids south of Paradise Island, which is one of the big popular tourist islands. When I posted that on my website, it's like somebody took a piece of photographic tape and like a Band-Aid, put it right on top of that. I take screenshots a lot, so I show you the picture before and after, and you can see how they covered it up. To this day, they're trying to keep us from knowing some really wonderful information, and I wish that they would quit blocking our ability to know the truth about these kind of things. By the way, even that book of mine has had all sorts of obstacles. I have 5 books listed on Amazon. That's the only one you can't get from there. There were so many blockages that you have to go to my website under Editor's Corner, and you can get the book there. That's the only way you can get it. And I call it a picture book for adults because it's mostly photos of these things I discovered on Mars, on the moon, at the bottom of the ocean, in Antarctica, and it's fascinating stuff.
Yes. Mention that website again.
Most of the words are easy to spell. Sky Ships Over. And then Cashiers is a town here in in our mountains here in North Carolina, and it's spelled just like a cashier at the grocery store. Sky Ships Over Cashiers. SkyShipsOverCashiers.com. On the front page, which functions like an index, open up Editor's Corner, and it's right there.
Mm-hmm. Good. All right. Yeah, you mentioned also the moon. Maybe we should.
You want to jump to the moon? Before,
Yeah,
actually, I learned quite a bit from Clark and that I will share with you. But first of all, I want you to tell you that when I was using Google Earth to explore the moon, I expected to find absolutely nothing because for years NASA's been airbrushing things so we can't see what's really, really there. I was shocked. I found one pyramid on the moon that's white and it's facing Earth. And the last time I checked, it was still there. It hadn't been wiped out. And like I said, I was shocked to find it. But
yeah,
let me pull up something here.
yeah. I've seen that pyramid. It's amazing. It's huge too.
I don't remember the dimensions anymore, but oh, it seems like it's 328 feet on each side. Don't hold me to that. Whatever it says in my book is correct.
Yeah.
My books are always
Mhm.
more credible than I
Yeah.
am, I should say. The memory doesn't it rounds it off sometimes.
Yeah.
Um,
And no, go
you
ahead.
wanted to talk about the moon. Clark was also friends with an astronaut, James Irwin. James Irwin was the lunar module pilot for the Apollo 15 mission. And um, this is Clark actually wrote down this, so I'm going to tell you what this man said. I observed several small whitish or metallic objects flying overhead. Whatever those things were, they had intelligence, performing tight angular dives and port and starboard sweeps above us. We heard no sound of thrust. They were very fast critters. Yes, there were what we call lunar tracks on the surface, just like vehicle tracks, which was very strange because we had not been traveling there in the lunar rover before we made this visit. So there, let's see, they were not made by any other known craft of the US or the USSR. It almost appears as exploratory mining activities into the lunar surface with a few what appeared to be efforts to mine digging. I also briefly saw what appeared to be structures in the far distance above and beyond the mountains of Hadley Rill, structures that appeared like glass or crystalline, high above the lunar horizon. I had a good view of whatever it was. And Clark explained that Irwin had taken 15 photos of of the craft and of the structures, but as soon as he landed, they took the photos away from him and they wouldn't allow him to see his own photos. Now I'm going back to the quote again. And it's the last part of it. I was able to briefly view at least one of those photos, supposedly showing those strange crystalline structures. And to my complete amazement, none of those structures was shown on that specific photo. It was as if all on the horizon was erased or replaced. So that's
Hmm.
again quoting astronaut James Irwin. That was before we had ever landed a lunar rover on the moon.
Yeah. I believe that because there is this um, uh, there's this structure up there that's called the shard, and that is believed to be either glass or a crystalline structure. It reaches up about over 2 miles tall, and you can Google that and it'll show up. And besides that, I also have uh, on my website we have some pictures of the moon and the pyramids up there. There is all kinds of artifacts,
On the
and
moon and on Mars, both. Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Uh, what else have you found up there?
Another thing that um, Clark uh, quoted von Braun. And this is supposedly von Braun's words. The Aryans from Aldebaran arrived on Earth many, many thousands of years ago, most recently in the early 1930s. Anyhow, this gets to something that also surprised me. They were here assisting the German armies with weapons that were far ahead of those of the USA, Russia, and Japan. Yes, I have seen real ETs from Aldebaran. He said they were taller and many have blonde hair and blue eyes. I have heard others of us Germans at KSC, which is Kennedy Space Center, admit they saw them. He said that Earth is a nursery of many cosmic races from the stars. We are being visited by other intelligence from the stars. Anyhow.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Hoagland was the one that discovered that shard up there, and it looks like an artifact, absolute artifact.
I've seen it. The pictures I have seen, it looks like something very sharp and pointed, but it's a very distant shot that I have seen. Have you seen
Yeah.
anything closer than that?
No, it's the distant one I've seen too.
I think that's the only one available, but it
Yeah.
clearly doesn't look like something the moon would hatch on itself, on its own.
Yeah. No, no, and there's another guy in Canada that he's got a YouTube channel, and he's got a telescope that is so big I could crawl inside of it. And he's been taking pictures of the moon, and he has seen ships floating across the surface, buildings up there, and all kinds of things. And about 8, 9 months ago, he was found in his home, the front door open. He was laying in the living room with his hands across his chest, dead. So that was Bruce Schwartz, and that YouTube channel, Bruce Sees All. He's got phenomenal things there, just like you're doing on your website. So there is
you can't help but think about all these scientists that are disappearing or being found dead, and if that's another effort to keep them shut up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What is your theory on that?
I don't have one. I have a very pedestrian one, and that would be very earthbound, which would be our enemies, like China, perhaps China at the top of the list, would be stealing our people. Things like that have happened before. And in a way, we stole all the geniuses from Germany right after the war in a similar fashion. That could be what's going on. But the fact that some of the ones that are killed, perhaps they won't cooperate. But nobody has anything more than theories at this point. I haven't heard anything where I'm going to post it and say, hey, this is what's happening, because I don't know for sure. I only have my theories. I mean,
Yeah.
you can get us some really dark stuff. I mean, if you want to talk about good and bad ETs, there might be bad ETs out there that don't want this out there too. But again, we're just in the realm of speculation.
Yeah.
And we want to get beyond that. We want to get beyond that if we possibly can.
Yeah, I know. Gosh, now I see we're down at the bottom of the hour. And for those of you that joined us late, we are talking with Mary Joyce, and we are talking about extraterrestrials and what is on Mars, what is on the moon, and we'll dwell a little more on what's under the water, because there are bases under the water. We can see the lights on it if you fly over it sometimes. Yeah, tell them your website again, where they can go and have a look at your pictures and your books.
Sky Ships Over Cashiers.com. Cashiers is spelled like a cashier at the grocery store.
Okay, all right. Yeah, and the buildings on the bottom of the ocean in the Caribbean is not the only place. There's also a huge area off the coast of Portugal over in Europe. It is about 300 feet down, and that is a whole city built of stone and great ornaments. And I imagine you might have seen some of that, because that a lot of people think also was part of Atlantis. So
I did an article. Let's see if I can find the title here. It's fairly recently, but anyhow, it's an article where I am quoting a lieutenant colonel who was involved in all sorts of UFO stuff for many years. And he said there are more UFO bases in the oceans or in the water than there is on land, than there are on land.
Yeah, I can believe that. It's safe for them down there. Well, at least they think so.
It is, because we've only explored about 1% of the whole ocean.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What we mentioned the Nazis and Antarctica and what the technology they had developed in Germany, they took out of the country before 1945. And there is, I bet you got some comments on that.
It could be. So we didn't cut for a break at the half hour?
No, that was it.
That was it, huh? Okay, all righty. Let me go back to Antarctica, because this ties in with a whole lot of things. And Clark actually knew a lot of the top tier German scientists and engineers that were brought over with Operation Paperclip. And that was about more than 1,600 people from the German science engineering background. And he gave me 4 statements that had to do with that. And I'm going to start with the last one. He said, later I discovered through another German scientist that the V7 was the code name for the German saucer-shaped craft that was developed below the South Polar ice cap, the same type that overflew Washington, D.C. and startled President Truman and the Pentagon chiefs in 1952. People to this day talk about the UFOs flying over Washington, D.C. in 1952. And von Braun said those were the German ships. They were not ET ships. And he also said that the ships were being built beneath the surface in Antarctica, and that a base was built down there as the Shangri-La for Hitler. And that was all built beneath the ice of the Antarctica. And Clark said, you better believe that's probably still in existence today.
I think so too. It's a huge area, huge cavern. So there's room for a lot of people there. In fact, Wendell Stevens had a theory on that, and he said that Hitler was out of the country before 1945. He had his cousin was the one that was a stand-in. And
was
the
he
guy
the one that was
it.
referred to as a doppelganger? Because they said there was a doppelganger for Hitler that,
Yeah,
got killed for him. Cousin. It was his cousin. Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that part. I just knew somebody was a stand-in for him. A look-alike.
His cousin also had drilled his teeth to match what Adolf's teeth looked like. So they prepared for something. It's kind of like what maybe Napoleon Bonaparte said. We fight as we are going to win, but we plan as we are going to lose. That's why they developed Antarctica.
Right. And it's still it's pretty secret down there. Most people still don't know about it. And let me go back again to how I can speak firsthand. When I was exploring Antarctica, I found 2 major entrances into Mars. And the biggest one, clearly, it was shaped kind of like this. And clearly, any plane that we had could have flown into it. As soon as I posted that on my website, skyshipsovercashiers.com, it was almost instantly like covered up in black ink. Well, I kept checking on it. And they went through a series of steps, and I took screenshots every time. And I had that in my book, Spy in the Sky. And so the first thing was everything went black. The next step, which didn't last very long, and I feel very, very lucky that I caught it, it briefly labeled it as Hollow Earth Entrance and Hollow Earth Entrance 2. That didn't last very long, and eventually the whole thing now looks like a sheet of ice or snow.
Oh, yeah. They're good at this.
And they're fast at it. Clearly, Google is walking hand in hand with whoever in our government is trying to keep us dumb.
Yeah, yeah, that's what they do. But now, Wendell Stevens had, from what he had developed a theory on what happened after Germany, is that when Hitler left, he went to Antarctica first. But the command down in Antarctica, they said, no, no, we don't want you here. You had your chance. You go to South America and live out your life. So he went to South America, and that's where he lived out his life.
So it's just probably the opposite of what we would logically conclude. We would conclude he would
Yeah.
go to South America first and then to Antarctica. Wow.
Yeah.
Who was the
Yeah.
one that who booted him out?
The commanders down, it's a German military
The
operation.
German military said you had enough, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there was the command down there. I don't even remember if there was a name for that guy, but the high command down there said, go to South America and then live out your life.
All right, maybe you have an answer for this. I found it disturbing that the ETs from Aldebaran were helping the Nazis. Why? Nothing that I saw out of Hitler's war looked good to me. Why would those ETs support them? Why would they provide them with technology? And they're the ones that look like the Aryan race that we associate with Hitler. They are blonde, blue-eyed, and tall. I have never gotten a good answer for that one. If you have one, please throw it out there, even if it's only a theory.
Yeah, maybe there is something behind the German war machine and the reasons for it that nobody dares to talk about, because people disappear when they do. And
Right.
I know what that is, but I'm not going to put my neck out there either, because in some areas, Hitler have gotten a bad rap. In fact, I have on another computer, I have a document written by the curator of the Auschwitz Museum, where he says the Crema 1, Crema 2, that's the crematoriums, they were put up after the war as a publicity stunt. So there's a lot of lies that dies into this, that it fit. Remember, the winner of the war always write history.
Wow. Well, to make more disturbing statements here, William Pollock, who is now dead, and his wife believes that perhaps he was taken out. He designed the security for the Air Force One. He designed some of the security for Area 51, and he was called to a meeting in Tonopah. Tonopah is less known than Area 51, but it's still out in the same general vicinity. And they were supposed to go for this meeting, and this airplane pulled up almost right to the door, and a man got out. Bill described him as looking like somebody dressed as a high German executive. He got off. He went into the meeting, kind of sat quietly in the back. I guess when he did speak, he spoke in what is known as High German. And then when he left, he got on the plane and took off the same way he came in. There are indications that we may have won the war, but maybe we didn't, or the battle, World War II, but maybe the Nazis are still exerting their power. And stories like that, which I heard directly from his widow, make you wonder if indeed that's the case.
Well, listening to the people that say they have been in the secret space program, they're saying that the Americans are working with the Nazis in Antarctica. So, yeah, I'm sure there is a cooperation.
If the Nazis have the facility beneath the ground, and then I wish I could remember the year. If I had to guess, I think it was 2012. All sorts of big important people like John Kerry, who was Secretary of State at that time, um, were flying down there, all in a very short period of time. No explanation. It was kept quiet. Um,
Yeah,
Again, it makes you wonder. There's so much to wonder about. My goodness.
I know. Yeah, but the thing about it is that Trump promised he was well, he ordered all of the military and the intelligence agencies to bring him everything they had on UFOs and extraterrestrials. That was 2 months ago. He gave them 3 months to finish. So we got 1 month left. That's only about that long. So we're going to hear
As much
something.
there are so many people that do not trust that man that I even if he came up with some of this stuff, I think there would be doubts about the information he'd be presenting.
Yeah, of course. Of course it is. You hear it on CNN, you can't believe anything anyway, and some of the other media. So we got to keep the salt shaker really close by.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if people are really curious about this stuff, I think it's important to at least sometimes be checking the foreign press.
Yeah.
Be checking carefully, check some of the other sources on the internet, but you're going to have to double check everything you hear on the internet anymore because there's so many people who are getting their kicks out of creating false stories. It's become a minefield. I have to double check stuff all the time.
Yeah, and even that gets short sometimes because
I know, I know.
some of they read each other's articles and then they say, that looks good. I'll go with that one. And then, well,
Uh-huh.
but there
Um,
are some foreign newspapers. I read foreign newspapers all the time. And for those,
how many languages can you read?
I can stumble through about six of them.
Okay, and which ones are you the most comfortable with?
I'm still working on English.
Oh, all right, besides English, what foreign languages are you the most
Well,
comfortable with?
I grew up in Norway, so I speak Norwegian, Swedish, Danish. I haven't practiced German for about 50 years, and the same with French. I don't count French anymore because I am so rusty that I make a fool of myself every time I try.
The
But
Scandinavian newspapers staying on top of things, do you find them credible sources?
not generally, but there is one that is actually better than probably most, and that's from Sweden. It's called
And what's
Svenska Dagbladet.
For my sake,
Svenska,
will you spell that slowly so I can go back and get it down later?
okay. All right. That is Svenska. Svenskadagbladet. Svenska
Okay.
Dagbladet. That is
And
the
I, s-
translate Swedish day paper. That's what it will transfer to.
okay.
But also Der Spiegel out of Germany is kind of a magazine newspaper. It is very good. They are well researched. And when it comes to America and other countries, Le Monde out of Paris is a good one. They try to stay as close as they can onto the truth. You won't find much truth about France, but you find about other countries. And if you're
Okay.
going to find out what's going on in the Middle East, then there's
Al Jazeera?
Cairo, Al
How about Al
Jazeera,
Jazeera?
yeah, Al Jazeera. Absolutely, I read it ever so often.
Yeah,
And
I don't
believe
do
me,
any of these regular, but I periodically will check it. And it's interesting because the perspective can be quite different than what we're being fed here.
Yeah. Another one, RT, Russia Today.
But that
They,
also is absolutely a propaganda tool because they have gotten that is known for doing bogus stories. So that one I
yes,
know you have to be careful of. You do have to
yeah.
be careful.
The reason I'm mentioning is because they got a lot of good stuff on UFOs.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's hordes of pictures, so there's a lot of good things to look at.
Okay. I hope this is helpful to anybody else who gets real serious about doing research because we really
Yeah,
do have to expand our sources of information.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
and I
we
hope
do.
this encourages other people to do that.
Yeah, they need to, because I am expecting that we're going to get something from this disclosure Trump is planning. We're going to get something. Now, probably scraps, but we're going to get something. The fanatic
Uh, I
religious group.
I've come across multiple sources that say the ETs are now in charge of this being revealed in the way that they want to reveal it, and that they remember all that drone stuff that went on in the primarily in the eastern part of our country, and they were just seeing UFOs everywhere. Well, we were seeing UFOs everywhere. They had even announced to some sources beforehand that they were going to do that. But again, part of the cover up was our military immediately began to send out drones and mix them up in there. So then people could dismiss it all as perhaps drone activity. So anytime the truth begins to get there, something comes in and muddies the waters. And so much disinformation is a mixture of truth and non truth. And that's perhaps
Yeah,
the most dangerous form of information.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And when they mix it like that, you don't know anymore.
Right. And that's exactly what they wanted to do,
Yeah,
muddy the waters.
but but I'm waiting to see. We think we're gonna get something because this was a news conference, but I think 2 days ago now when Prince Charles was in Washington. He's not Prince anymore, King Charles now, and
Hmm.
yeah, one of the news people asked Trump, "Is there anything new on the extraterrestrials?" And he made just a quick comment, and then he moved on from that. He said, "Oh, they're not from here," and then he moved on. So there already is a little bit that has come up. They're not from here. What did he mean? Did he say from here, United States, or did he mean from this world?
Right. Right. Another story that I posted recently um, was by a very, very well known attorney. He was like on the Pentagon paper case and the Watergate files, and he had top notch cases that he handled. And he publicly stated that he believed that this new Pope, Pope Leo the 14th, will be the disclosure Pope, that he will be the one who will be, revealing things about ETs. And I posted that. And again, on the main page of the website, on the right hand side, I have a column of the most recent 20 stories, and it's in there. So you just click on it and you can get right to it. We'll see. I think we are clearly going to have some incredible information come through this year and next year. I don't have any
Yeah,
doubt at all about it. Um, and we'll probably be very surprised, even those of us who expect it to happen.
yeah. Well, I expect it, so it will be there.
All
You
right.
remember
You're a
what?
strong-willed man. You're going to make it happen. I
Yeah,
appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah. Well, you remember what quantum mechanics is telling you? We create our reality.
So
So,
you're busy
in my,
creating it. All right.
yeah, it'll be there. At least I will know about it. But, gosh, we got about 6 minutes left. But you did mention there something about life on Mars. What do you think about it, that? I
Oh, I don't doubt it at all. Let me tell you another thing that there's many things I discovered on Mars using Google Earth. Not only did I have photos of 3 different UFOs. One of them's parked and it's cast a shadow. And if I remember correctly, it's something like 3.5 miles across, pretty good size. You can see the hump in the middle of it. But more significantly, one day I decided I needed to get out of my conventional box, which is to go from right to left or left to right when I'm looking at Mars. So one day I decided to go from pole to pole. And when I did that, I found, oh, I forgot the number. It's like 27 entrances into Mars, all lined up over 16 miles. And each one, they're not old entrances. They look like contemporary square cut, like warehouse entrances. And in round figures, they might range from like 400 feet across to 1,000 feet across in width. And the detail around each one is just slightly different. Much of that has been covered up with sand, but you can still see the top of these entranceways. And I just found that fascinating. That indicates something is going on beneath Mars
Yeah,
since it had its devastating explosion.
yeah. And then there's that picture that came out of the Gigapan scans from the rover, where you see that doorway going into the
Right,
side of the mountain.
right. I found that a bunch of years ago. I posted it on the website. I've got it in the book. There's no way that's that has to be artificially created. There's no
Yeah,
way. Now that's probably an ancient entrance. That doesn't look contemporary. It has a crack in it and things that indicate it's older, but it looks like a true artifact.
oh yeah, that's a door. There's no
That's
way
a
around.
door. You can even see the slanted incline going up to the door.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And if for people want to look at more of this, go to her website. Talk about that again. Mention the website and where they can find your books and how they can get a hold of you.
Okay. This book, I hope everybody can get this book. I'm only charging $16 for it. I am not making a penny off of this book, but I feel so important that it get out there. And so if you go to skyshipsovercashiers.com and open up Editor's Corner. Editor's Corner is on the left-hand side of the home page. At the very top of that, it tells you how to get that book. And I hope everybody will take a look at those pictures because you can't find most of those things now because they have been deliberately, taken from us.
Yeah,
And if anybody finds anything, if you use Google Earth yourself, please use that you use the control pen key and the press screen or print screen, hit those at the same time, and you get a picture of whatever is in front of you. Because if you find something phenomenal, save it because it might not be there the next time you go to see it.
yeah, yeah. That's
One day, one more story. One day I was in here, I found something in Antarctica. I called somebody whose name you would know, but I'm not going to use it. Um, and I said, I'll send you a copy of it after I take a shower. Well, I didn't take a long shower. I came back, and during the time it took to take a shower, this oval shape had appeared, so it looked like it was nothing but an oval thing of ice, right where I had made this discovery. That's how quickly things can happen. And that's why that print key or print screen key is so important. And if anybody finds anything like that, I hope they send it to you and me.
hmm Yeah, I remember I was digging around in the archives of the NASA back in the late 80s and the 90s, and I found there's a bunch of stuff that was classified, secret, top
Mm-hmm.
secret. Why would they classify pictures that if it's only a rock in the sky? Now it's not classified anymore, but it is all covered up.
Yeah.
So there's nothing there anymore.
Right. Real quickly, I'll squeeze it in before we run out of time. A woman, well respected, who worked in the photographic department at NASA. She was in her office, and one of the guards came in, and he had a big gash across his head. He had been assigned to burning and destroying UFO photos. There was a guard protecting or watching him. He took too long and was looking at some of these photos, and the guard who was guarding him or watching him hit him with the rifle butt, and that's why he had a gash on his head.
Wow.
So just to hear that they're burning stuff, and they're just getting rid of stuff. So keep up your good work.
And you too. So
All
thank you
righty.
very much for being with us.
You have a good evening.
Much. Yeah, thank you. And for those of you out there still watching with us, if you like what you hear, please subscribe. That'll help us a lot. And then until next time, be good.